Can you see the codex?
It's just beneath the central hub, sir. But I'm compelled to warn you. Breaching the Genesis chamber is a Class B crime, punishable...
Nobody cares anymore, Helix. The world is about to come to an end.
When you make movies like this, people forget how important it is to create a backstory. In our movie, there's only 20 minutes or so of actual screen time that you have to translate the idea that this is a real place with a real history. And it'll seem more real, I think, because of it. You don't feel like, oh, this is just some stuff that's been thrown together.
This opportunity to do that much of Krypton on screen is a great challenge, but it also requires this kind of depth of thinking to go through not only what the immediate needs of the characters are in the present, but how did they get to where they are? What is the kind of series of events that are leading up to this moment that creates the mindset for Jor-El to send his son off into space? For us, as we're designing in the context of a world rather than of a script, we know what's happening beyond the closed door. If the character turns right instead of left, we would know what was around that corner. So we can give a kind of background to support the characters themselves so that they know their place in the world.
This is a second chance for all of Krypton, not just the bloodlines you deem worthy.
It seemed very interesting that this was kind of a feudal culture, a culture that was led by powerful families, that each of these families controlled Krypton. And what we designed supports the story by really thinking back into the culture itself. So what we did was to say, well, what if the Krypton society had evolved its biological sciences in a far more sophisticated way than, say, its physics or its chemistry? Perhaps there was a science in Krypton that came directly from their biological capabilities. So that kind of turned into a set of rules like there are no straight lines in Krypton. Every single object is organic and unique because there's a certain kind of intelligence behind the way it evolves.
As much as I love the original Superman, I do remember that Krypton was largely depicted in a sort of crystalline world where people kind of wafted around in lurex caftans, and it was all very ethereal, you know. Obviously that had to go, that notion had to go, and so the idea of this planet being much more organic, where everything is grown and evolves.
That meant depicting a lot of the alien flora and fauna, and we have a number of alien beasts in the film. There's these big lumbering cow-like rhino things that are Rondor beasts, which comes from the Superman canon, and then there's these sort of genetically engineered flying things, which is another Kryptonian thing.
Ah!
So what's great about having Dan Lemon at Weta involved is they actually have to flesh out what is this creature, this Rondor beast, for instance. How did it come to exist? Does it have a hard shell, a soft shell? Is there a bird on top of it? If so, why? Is there grass growing on it?
We had extensive conversations about what it was about Krypton that was special. It's a planet with different makeup of substances and minerals and radiation, and it's a much harsher environment than Earth.
It's extremely advanced civilization that's falling into disrepair because of their own folly.
One of the characteristics of the planet is that it's been mined of a lot of its natural resources and depleted, and it's on the verge of collapse at the beginning of the film.
We thought about strip mining, for example, as the idea of a planet that was self-exploiting, was really voluntarily kind of destroying itself. There are these striations on the surface that represent this deep, clawed strip mining over the whole surface. And the population has moved below ground because there's really nothing left above ground. And so as you approach the surface of the planet, you see these towers sticking up, and it looks very, very sparse. But if you go down into one of these crevasses where the population has moved for self-protection, essentially, and gone into the caves that they've carved out, they're literally living in the ruins of their own planet. And everywhere you go, you have a sense that they are sucking the last of the resources out of the planet.
The Kryptonians have actually mined the center of their planet down to the core, and it's become unstable.
I warned you, harvesting the core was suicide. It has accelerated the process of implosion.
And that yielded a certain concept for what Krypton looked like when it exploded. And Zach and Alex and I talked about how matter gets thrown out, but most of it's right there. The planet's just a rubble field being held by the gravity of its core, which is turned into a pulsar. It's been ignited almost like as a really failed star. And that's going to give you some really neat looks because you'll see this thing winking in its own little space dust.
So we sucked the equator of the planet in and let it collapse. And then once that had collapsed, we blew it back out the same way, creating a sort of a ring of fire and debris.
For all these over-the-top things that happen, you want it to look as natural as possible. You want it to be in the character of the rest of the movie. And so I think that's all the ultimate challenges. You have this wild sci-fi and you have that naturalistic thing that you're trying to convey, and those things often are at odds with each other, but you just try to find whatever that line is or the happy medium and just kind of like get into it and wrestle with it and try to walk it.
Make a better world than ours, Cal.